The key word, as President Michel Temer has said, is trust. There is no better opportunity to show we are trustworthy and to regain the country's credibility than by organising a successful Olympic Games, by showing that Brazil, despite going through difficult economic times and political turmoil, has been able to fulfil its commitments with the international community by organising the Olympics successfully.
That's the Brazilian sports minister, Leonardo Picciani, discussing the Summer Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. Picciani says despite the economic challenges facing Brazil, all infrastructure, including a delayed metro line, will be ready in time for the opening ceremony on the 5th of August. Let's get back to our panel now, and let's go to Maria. Maria, just let's focus on the Olympic Games for a moment. Let's stay there. You know, while we look at developments in Brazil, the rest of the world, of course, has this big question. What is going to happen during the Olympic Games when we look at these political problems that Brazil is experiencing right now? President Rousseff is going to be sidelined during these games. She was asked about that during the interview, and she said she was very proud of the fact that she played a big role in bringing those games to Brazil. But if she is sidelined, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think it's a very dangerous message because, again, it's not about defending a government. It's about defending democracy in Brazil. And none of the reasons I heard so far can justify the impeachment. And I think that Brazilian society see this now very clearly. The interim president, Michel Temer, appointed 7 ministers who have been accused of corruption. The House, the former Speaker of the House who orchestrated the impeachment now had to step down on corruption charges. So the society now also sees that by having the impeachment of President Dilma was a way for many corrupt politicians to stop the investigations because she gave more independence to the federal police in order to move ahead with the investigations, and that is going to stop right now. And it's right that she was able to invest on education, on health care. When she was re-elected in 2014, we had the situation of full employment in Brazil. But of course, that now there is international elements that can affect the economy of any country in the world. And I think that the main point that the Brazilian society needs to ask right now, and the international community needs to ask right now, is what kind of a basis we are going to have to justify this impeachment? And is Brazil going to be seen as a democracy? I don't think so. I think this is dangerous, and I think that the Brazilian society is already mobilizing itself. The elimination of the Minister of Culture is creating a lot of opposition from the academic community, from artists. Imagine eliminating an institution that promoted Brazilian culture all over the world. Of course, this is not going to improve the economy. I think we're going to have more social and economic instability in Brazil, and the Olympic Games, for sure, the Brazilian society will mobilize during the Games.
Monica, another thing was that during that interview, she was asked whether she was being targeted by the political opposition because she was a woman, and she said yes, she is being singled out because she is a woman. Does gender have something to do with this?
I think gender plays a role in the sense that not necessarily in the impeachment, but during her presidency, right. I would read things in the press that I thought that was just unfair. Like the regular stuff, looking at the appearance, or that's you have that, and we see here in the same here in 2008 during the elections when Hillary Clinton was just fighting for the nomination of the Democratic Party. So you do see a few things in the press that I would consider that are gender biased, but in terms of being targeted for being a woman, when she started her presidency, she had an approval rating of over 90%. You know, nobody had that before. There was so much goodwill for her. You know, I personally, I'm not, I don't consider myself an ideological person, but I really wished that we would have the first Brazilian president, that she would be very successful. And I think a lot of people, like 90%, right? A lot of people were in that way. It just didn't work. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But one thing that I want to take an issue when people talk about the Brazilians are cornered, that they have this impeachment process that they don't have control of. I don't think it's true. When she did, President Dilma did in fact win the elections with 54 million votes, but now she's like, her approval rating, it's been for some time less than 10%. So those votes, they evaporated. The support that she had, it's inexistent.
Is there public support for what is happening to her right now?
I think there is. The difference is, because I survived 2 impeachment processes, right? I was there in '92 when the country first impeached Fernando Collor, and at the time you had a much broader consensus. You didn't have the type of division that you have today. But even then, today, the division is not 50-50, it's a minority, but it's a very vocal minority. You know, I have, for example, friends on Facebook, and you can see people who are upset about this. They're really upset, and they make sure that everybody hears about it. Right. But it's still a minority. It's not, I think, most people support. If you look at the polls, the majority, supermajority would support the impeachment process.
Okay, Paulo, let's look ahead right now. Brazil's economy is in a recession right now. It's facing serious problems. There's high unemployment. The interim president, Temer, well, he has his work cut out right now. Let's take a listen to some of what he had to say. Let's watch this.
It is urgent to calm down the nation and unify Brazil. It is urgent to form a government to rescue the nation. The sooner we balance public accounts, the faster we will restart growth. You've already seen our first cost-cutting measures in a modest way. We've already reduced various ministries of the public service.
So there's going to be some bitter medicine for Brazil, isn't there? I mean, they already talked about shutting down the culture ministry, and even some housing projects have been shelved right now. Does Temer have a plan to fix Brazil?
Well, I think he does. He has nominated a finance minister that is, by the way, for 8 years, was the central bank president of Lula da Silva, was the man that Lula kept insisting with Dilma Rouseff, please nominate Henrique Meirelles as your finance minister. She resisted that because Henrique Meirelles has an outlook that is more liberal. Dilma Rouseff is a statist. She is very much a dogmatic person in the sense that Lula never was. So the vice president or acting president now has one thing to do and only one thing. Minister of Culture is very, very important. Not now. Right now, it is important to stop the free fall of Brazilian economy and start building confidence, reestablish, restore fiscal responsibility in order to convince Brazilians to go back to the markets and start consuming again, and attract investors.
But she did point out in that interview as well that some of what happened to Brazil is not under her control. I mean, she did point out that there has been a general slowing down in the economies of emerging markets. Yes. Commodity prices have dropped as well. And then there was the economic crisis, which she pointed out started in 2009.
Commodity prices didn't drop only for Brazil. Right. It dropped to all countries that produce commodities in the world. Didn't start in 2014, as she stated. It started in 2010, 2011. Brazil had plenty of time to regroup, to reorganize, to fight that. A lot of countries, including in Latin America, did it. They are not facing the same economic crisis. The economic crisis of Brazil, unfortunately, was mostly made in Brazil by Brazilians because of mismanagement, lies, and incompetence. Okay. And that's the legacy that Vice President Temer, with a very, very difficult political scenario at hand, has to deal with. It's not going to be easy. Brazil is in intensive care now, has an opportunity to start convalescing, but it's going to be tough.
Let me go to Maria. Maria, you talked a moment ago about the threat that Brazilian democracy faces right now. The president was asked very pointedly during that interview, does she believe that what she called a coup will lead to a dictatorship. She said no, she doesn't believe that that is the case. Do you believe that Brazil's democratic institutions are strong enough to withstand what is going on right now? I only have a minute.
Yeah, I think the Brazilian society will defend the democratic process in Brazil. And I don't think that you can justify the impeachment because you don't like the president, because you think that you don't like her personality. You know, I only hear personal attacks and critiques of a certain economic choice that many countries face economic difficulties. The United States did that, and the Obama administration decided to invest more in the economy as opposed to the European countries that adopted structural adjustment policies. I think this is a choice, and you cannot call to impeach a president because she chooses a certain economic policy. This is not a reason for the impeachment. You know, if you don't like her personality, again, this is not a reason for the impeachment. So the key issue is she's being accused of a common practice that today 16 state governors are doing. So this is not a crime in Brazil. This is the key point.